Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's live on Sampoorna We're really excited to present this live because this is something that is close to my heart, given that I'm a huge sweet tooth and I know many of you are as well. In today's live, we have with us a special guest, Aditi Eswar. I'm just going to bring Aditi Eswar on so that she can say hi to all of you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Shamla, for having me today.
So wonderful. So, if for those of you who are new here, Aditi Eswar is a co-founder of Sampoorna Ahara, and she heads the entire sweets division of things. So, if you've eaten any of our sugar-free, jaggery-free sweets, you know that you know where the recipes are coming from, and you know whose creations they are. And today we'll be talking not only about Aditi's journey in discovering a healthier lifestyle and making sugar free sweets, but she's also going to give you tips and recommendations on how you can make the journey as well. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, Aditi, I know that when we talk about sugar free or when we are looking at sweeteners, refined sweeteners, and their impact on our health, today it's a big deal in the sense everyone knows about it. There's a lot of awareness around it. You see people, both adults and children, even children, consciously moving towards healthier choices. But you started way before all this awareness has actually become mainstream. So my first question is, when did you know that sugar was bad for health, and what was that like for you?
I think when I first quit sugar, I noticed that I developed a really intense craving for it. I was 15 years old, and my brother had just finished his doctor's degree, and he was doing extensive research on sugar and its ill effects on the body. And he inspired me to quit sugar. But when I did that, things got really, really difficult. And I think with that came the awareness that, okay, there's something that's not okay with this. With healthy food that is whole foods, right, and plant based, you generally don't have such intense cravings. It's something that it's almost as if you were addicted to it and you can't live without it. So as soon as I quit it, that was the time actually when I started to eat a lot more of it. So I used to sneak in chocolates, I used to sneak in candies that had a huge amount of sugar, and it took some time to get over it. But the awareness that I got in with that experience was really eye opening.
That's amazing because it's also an age, right? When you're just 15, it's an age where you actually want to explore and try out new foods, and you also feel rebellious by nature
Yeah.
against rules and regulations and all of that. And for you to also kind of internalize a decision and now be able to see the fact that it was actually causing a craving that was unnatural for you at the time. So that's a very good insight to bring in right at the beginning of our conversation, because I think we can talk a little more about it as we go on with the other questions. So when you heard, and at 15 this was, right? So when you heard that sugar was bad for you, and as you started your journey and you were sneaking in things, what was the overall feeling for you at the time? Were you discouraged? Were you disappointed? How did you deal with it? Did you did mention that you realized that you were eating more of it when you knew you shouldn't? Did that phase continue for a long time? So what was that entire process like for you?
I think you're always raised with this idea, right, that sugar is bad for you. Generally, even people who eat the mainstream way, right, with a diet filled with dairy and refined sugar and all these refined products, you're anyway taught that sugar is bad for you, but it sneaks in to daily things like your tea, your coffee, cereals, breakfast bars, ice creams and cakes. Even though we know it's junk, we still eat it, right? And this idea that oh, once in a while it's okay, that's also taught to us. So when you're trying to break out of that, it can be pretty difficult, even as a, especially as a teen, when you're going through so many hormonal changes that tend to sometimes put you into a depression. Sometimes you're a little susceptible to mood swings, or just generally feeling stressed out because now you're transitioning into an adult world that is quite messy, to be honest. So traveling through all those different emotions can be pretty difficult. And so around that age, you tend to look for support, right? If you're not receiving emotional support from your family or from your friends or people you trust and look up to, you tend to look to food. Food is the first thing. And from food, it goes to other substances like drugs and alcohol and things like that. Sugar is pretty much up there in terms of how dangerous it can be for the health. But because it's something that is a household object, right? We don't really think about it as dangerous. It's just something you indulge in. Oh, it's okay. I'm feeling upset. I'm going to eat it. Makes me feel good. Of course, it makes you feel good, right? But the effect that it has on the body is pretty debilitating. And so, around the same time that I started to binge eat on things that contained a lot of sugar, my health really deteriorated. For sure. I started to put on a lot more weight. I started to become more and more dependent on things that had sugar. On a daily basis, I was probably consuming about 5 to 6 huge chocolate bars, you know. And so it was pretty much kind of like a de-addiction program that I almost, went through. That's what it felt like to me. So it's more than just, it's more than just deciding to quit eating it. Along with deciding that, you also have to give yourself a lot of emotional support, because anything that you're addicted to, it's in lieu of not having that support, right? You're looking for it elsewhere externally. So being somebody who meditates very regularly and who was taught that at a very young age, that really helped me a lot with not needing this external support from my food. So I meditated a lot, and that was really eye opening as well, to be in touch with my own emotions, to know what I require, to be able to get over all my childhood trauma. That was really, really helpful as well. And so once I finished that process, right, I no longer needed food to give me comfort. Although I still love food, and sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I could eat a little extra of this or that. Because it's whole food plant based, it doesn't do me any harm. So that's a good thing.
That's very interesting. I think you mentioned a few points that I just want to touch on when you were answering this question. I think as teenagers, there is a lot of emotional turmoil, and there is already hormonal changes, there is confusion, your body is changing, and at the same time, you do tend to get dependent on things that make you feel good in the absence of emotional support, or in the absence of you realizing that you even need emotional support. And I think especially for teenagers today who are looking at eating healthy, I think it's important to understand that this is a normal process, and that these feelings are okay to have, and to actually look at the root cause. Like you rightly said, once you meditated, and once you kind of understood what you needed to do for your emotional well-being, food became less of a dependent, something that you depended on for filling that lacuna. So that is very interesting. The other thing that you also mentioned, Aditi, was about eating a lot of chocolates and eating a lot of sweets. And we know that these products, in addition to sugar, have so many unhealthy ingredients that keep us kind of hooked onto them, and we just can't stop eating them. We keep going on and going on and going on, and that in turn affects, again, in terms of putting on weight, or in terms of breakouts, which again cause more mental and emotional
Yeah.
issues. So I want to ask you, were these some factors that motivated you to look at making sugar-free sweets, or were there other motivations as well? Because I know that you've been someone who's enjoyed cooking from a very, very young age, and you're an excellent cook, and it's something that that has been with you for a very long time. So, what were your motivations when you looked at making sugar-free sweets?
I think couple of things. Main point is that sugar-free sweets that are also whole food plant-based are difficult to come by. And so being able to go to a store and buy something that's ready made is really difficult. That was the main thing, really, for me. Putting in the effort to make the things that I wanted to was getting challenging, right? I was a working woman running a full-time homeschooling system, and I honestly didn't have the time to sit down and make snacks for the children that were healthy for them. And buying outside was just not an option, right? So I think making whole food plant-based sugar-free sweets accessible for the general public, that was a driving point. That's something that really, really motivated me. Of course, there are 101 other things, like for example, the the good health that you experience eating this way, right? That's another point that is really motivating as well.
Wonderful. And I think now that you're a mother yourself, having these options, they come in handy, right? Like when you want to eat something, or when you don't have to make it from scratch, because you've enabled a system where it is easily accessible to other women like you, who are working mothers, working professionals, who just want something tasty as well as healthy. And I mean, this is a no-brainer, absolutely a no-brainer. So when we talk about things like sweets and snacks and other things, cakes, people think of them as treats, as something that you indulge in. So they're like, oh, healthy food is there on one hand, but these sweets and things are something that they're treats. So why should we think of health when we are looking at these indulgences? Do you think it's important, and what would be your perspective on this?
I think one would think of indulging or giving themselves a treat only if they feel deprived. That's one thing. The moment you think you need to eat healthy food, right, the general popular belief is that you're depriving yourself of all the things that you enjoy. Whereas being on a whole food plant based diet, that's totally the opposite. You're still eating everything that you enjoy, you're just eating it in a healthier form. So you don't feel like indulging, you don't have cravings, you don't feel deprived of things. There are very, very, very few things that I actually can't eat. It's quite surprising. Once you start on such a diet, right, the experience itself, you'll get to know.
Yeah, I think when we look at indulgence and when we look at healthy, we look at them as two separate things. We don't
Yeah,
think of, oh, this can be healthy while being extremely delicious, extremely indulgent,
exactly.
extremely
Yeah,
tasty. And yeah, and when you said there are very few things that you can't replicate or you don't eat, it doesn't even matter, because of the list of things that you can, right?
yeah,
Right from like laddus to burfis to even gulab jamun. I mean, the list is just endless. And I think also the best thing about being able to being able to eat these type of sweets that are healthy is that you can actually eat as much as you want without compromising on health. Because a
exactly.
lot of times when you're looking at sweets as treats, you're like trying to limit it or eating a few because of health concerns and other things. But here you can
Yeah,
eat as much as you want and feel
yeah,
good at the end of the day, right?
yeah.
Like,
And in fact, eating a whole food plant based cake or a whole food plant based ice cream actually adds to the nutritional value of the food that you're eating. You're actually going to get
right.
a lot of nutrition out of it. It's not something, you're not eating something that's empty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, in fact, I've talked about this before, but during my pregnancy, I literally ate cake for breakfast. Like something that is really that decadent, you're like, oh my god, I'm going to become so fat, I'm going to, I don't know, fall really sick eating it. But it felt so good because every single ingredient that goes into it was just so healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, for people who are watching this and who are thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, but what are the actual sweets? You can head over to sampoornaahara.com, which is our website, and look for this sugar-free sweets, and you'll see that there's a whole wide variety of sweets. There are even assorted boxes in case you don't know which one to pick right off the bat. And when you were talking about indulging on cakes for breakfast during your pregnancy, I also want to talk about the power bars, the energy bars that you made, and those are just amazing because as someone who really likes working out, and I'm sure it's the same with you as well, you want to eat something immediately after a workout that's healthy, but at the same time it's so delicious. One can't believe that it is healthy even, right? Like,
Actually, there's a funny story about this one. So recently we came up with pro lactation bars, right, for lactating mothers. And in my head, I assumed that, okay, this is going to be really interesting for all these moms. They're going to be buying it and all that. And I got the first samples and I kept them in my kitchen. And I was supposed to try them out and give the team my feedback. The next day, right, whenever I got time to actually go and test up the samples, half the box was empty and I hadn't even touched the box. And I find my husband Sushant reaching into the box and eating them. I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, was this supposed to like be for some sample or something? I didn't know, it was very nice. I'm eating it. I'm like, those are lactation bars. He's like, really? They're so yum. And he literally finished the whole box and said, I didn't get even a single bar to sample.
that's the thing, right? When people think of lactation bars, you're thinking of something that you're just eating for the purpose of health, that you somehow have to consume it because it's
Yeah.
something that your body needs. But when you eat these bars, and your lactation bars are also really healthy for anyone, even if,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, even if they're not lactating mothers. It's incredible how our idea of sweets and our idea of health, they're so opposed. Like in our own minds, when you think of sweets, you're thinking of laddus and other things that are completely unhealthy, but you don't realize you can make those same things in a healthy way and actually enjoy it more often. I think that's the blessing and the benefit of this whole thing. And also, this kind of leads me to the next question, because we've been talking about this. A lot of people, despite hearing that, oh, there are all these different things that you can make, in their mind, there's always this thing of, oh, will we be limited in choice? Because the sweets that you make at Sampoorna Ahara are not just sugar free, but you also don't use jaggery, you also don't use honey. This is just as far as sweeteners go, and we'll get to the other health aspects of the sweets as well in the following questions. So when we are talking about, then they're like, oh, what sweetener do you use? And like, then they're just thinking, okay, you can make what, dry fruit laddus? Is that all you eat? So can you talk a little bit about you know some of the different types of sweets that you have? Maybe also a little bit about each of those sweets, so that people who are listening to this can actually get an idea of what we mean when we say there is a variety.
It's a bit of a complicated question because really there's so much variety. you know but so we have chocolate truffles, we have vanilla truffles, we have power bars for those who are interested in working out. We have power bars specifically targeted for women and women's health. We also have our own version of a gulab jamun made completely with whole food plant based ingredients. And this is just a small glimpse of what we have. We also have so many more. varieties of products from cakes to snacks to we also have potato crisps, believe you me.
Absolutely. And when we talk, when I was just when you were telling the different types of sweets that we have, just to give people an idea of variety, I was also just thinking for each festive season in the last year, there have been like festive specific sweets and sweet boxes that you've made, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe you can also talk a little bit about those.
Every single festival, like we've had, like you said, we've had brand new products releasing. There was so much experimenting happening behind the scenes. It was so inspiring to see, and it was so amazing that we could make so many different varieties and cater to so many different tastes and likes and dislikes. So we came up with an assorted sweet box. Some were flavors that you find in one of the boxes were flavors that you find popularly in South India, and another one was North Indian flavors, and people loved them. They sold like crazy. And I was just talking about this to Dr. Achutan yesterday, and I was telling them we sold hundreds of kgs of sweets last Diwali. We're expecting to be able to double those numbers at least this year.
Yeah, just as you were explaining the two different sweet boxes, the assorted boxes, I was thinking of the chocolate pan because I remember when the idea of that particular sweet came up, I was so excited because I like chocolate in any form, okay, like dark chocolate, light chocolate. I don't think till now I found chocolate that I don't like. So when the idea of chocolate pan came up, and that too sugar free, jaggery free, and other aspects of the sweets also being healthy, it was just mind blowing to have these kind of options where, because people say, okay, maybe on an everyday basis I'll just have a dates laddu or whatever, but during festivals people actually want the variety, they want those specific sweets, and it was just amazing to see that variety there, and also the obbattu. Oh my god,
Mm.
I think I'm hungry all over again.
We're very
Yeah.
excited for the summer season. We are going to be releasing ice creams and frozen desserts soon. And I'm so excited about it. Not just that it's going to be sugar free and whole food plant based, but we're also working on zero waste packaging. And so just like how all our kulfis come in mattas, we're also going to be giving our ice creams in them. So that's so exciting and amazing to be working
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's great that throughout, with all the products that we've launched, we've managed to keep the packaging as well low waste, and yeah, really. So coming to the next question, I think which I've been hinting at for the last two questions, and is that the sweets that you make are not just sugar free or jaggery free or free of honey, but they have a lot of other health benefits, and you also use a lot of other ingredients that are healthy, and you also specifically stay away from some ingredients that are not healthy. Now,
Yeah.
when I'm going to let you talk about the specific ingredients, but generally, when you tell people I'm not using this, and this, and they're looking at you and they're like, what are you using? How can you make? Like, there's nothing left, right? So I
Yeah.
think this will be an interesting question for most people to actually see that everything from the obbattu to the laddus to the gulab jamun they're all made using these specific ingredients and not using the traditional ingredients that people use to make them. So
Yeah. I think I've seen a lot of people just make vegan sweets because, according to them, it's easier. You know, there's a lot more they can use if you're just vegan. For example, you can use oil and refined sugar and jaggery and all these things, right? But when you decide, okay, let's just do whole food plant based, that means you're not using any refined products at all. So not only are you not using dairy products, you're also not using oil, you're also not using maida or sugar or jaggery or even honey for that matter. So generally the popular belief is the lesser number of ingredients you have, the less complex the dish is going to be. But I mean, that's the farthest it can get from the truth. It's how you treat every ingredient, it's how you work with them, and, uh, how you make them behave the way you want them to.
Absolutely. And I think you hit upon like a very interesting point when you said that people think that if there are fewer ingredients, it must be an easy dish. But you've managed to get texture, flavors, and everything that is so close to what one would experience while eating a traditional sweet, and
Yeah.
also unique flavors, because many of the sweets and most of the sweets actually are sweetened mostly using dates, many of them only dates. So it can be tricky to get those many different flavors with just dates as a sweetener, because dates itself has a very strong flavor to it, right? So how do
Yeah.
you like what is the process that you use to come up with these different flavors that are distinct from one another while using the same sweetener, which itself has a strong taste?
Actually, I found that, I've grown to love the taste of dates. In fact, in all my sweets, and I've come to really really dislike the taste of sugar and other refined sweeteners, because all they give you is sweetness. But whereas with dates, it adds to the overall flavor of your dish, and I really really enjoy that.
Yeah, there's a depth and there are
There is, yes,
layers to the
yes,
sweet. Yes.
yeah. And so it's a
Yeah.
lot more enjoyable actually once you detox yourself out of that whole sugar craze that one can
Yeah.
get into, that I personally experienced myself. Once you get out of that, these subtler flavors are so enjoyable. And in fact, you seek them out. You don't really enjoy the strong taste of sugar anymore. It's too much. It's
Yeah.
just too much.
Yes.
And the feeling that you get after eating it, it doesn't feel natural anymore.
Yes, when you were talking about complex flavors, I think two of your sweets came to my mind just as someone who enjoys sweets. On the one hand, you have the paneer rose laddu, which has that, and using those rose petals to flavor it is so unique when it combines with dates and all the other ingredients that you use. So I think that on one hand, and the citrus truffles, that is
Mm,
again something that is such a distinct flavor that comes out, which is something so fresh and so light. And although both of those sweets use dates, they're so different from one another as sweets itself. So when you were saying that, I was just thinking of these two sweets. I was like, oh my God, while
yeah,
they still are sweetened with dates, it
yeah,
adds to complexity when you add
yes,
such distinct
yes.
ingredients.
So talking about complex, when it comes to our gehu gulab jamun, right? The dates, the syrup that we soak the jamun in, that is date based as well, and it's so yummy. It's so yum. Because if you were to use just sugar, there's this sharpness to anything that you make with it, But whereas with dates, it's a rounder flavor. It's a darker, more deep flavor, and it really enhances the dishes that you make. It's just about
Yeah.
how you do need to be mindful about how you use it. Certain dishes you might want to soak the dates and grind them into a paste. Certain dishes you might want to use them raw. Others you want to boil them. There are different ways you treat an ingredient in order to get the best out of it, depending on the dish that you're creating.
Hmm.
So such pioneering work has been going on in the Sampoorna Ahara kitchen. We are constantly experimenting, constantly trying to figure out more ways of using these ingredients, simple ingredients that we have in their simplest form, in the most holistic form that they're in, and trying to, replicate, and not just replicate, but create something totally new. People should enjoy these things not just because they're substitutes for other things that they enjoy, but because they enjoy this particular thing. Like I would
Yes,
want people to buy my energy bars because they're yummy as they are, not because there's
yes,
no other option.
yes. Absolutely. And for those of you, if you are looking to experiment and try and make your own sugar-free sweets that are also healthy, vegan, refined grain-free, so there's no maida, rava, semia, white rice, none of that, you can head over to nutritionscience.in and sign up for the free plant-based Kickstart and recipes course. You can get access to over 200 whole food plant-based recipes that you can actually make from the comfort of your home. So this is something that you can try at home as well. And an easy way of doing that is to follow some of the recipes that we've put out there. So we've done the thinking for you. We've experimented on ourselves very happily so, and you can try out recipes from nutritionscience.in. So Aditi, I have one last question for you today. So listening to everything that you've told us today and to kind of see the immense work that has gone behind it, people can now actually buy these sweets and enjoy them. That Sweets that are tasty, sweets that allow you to indulge in as much as you want without compromising on health. So if someone looking at this is saying, okay, how do I get an idea of the different kinds of sweets you have? What would be your top 5 recommendations for people? And if any of them are your personal favorites, you can also mention them.
I'd recommend everything on the Sampoorna Ahara store. But my top five favorites are the Gehu Gulab Jamun, simply because it's so decadent and so yummy. And the second one is the flaxseed laddu. We have this in three flavors: vanilla, chocolate, and elaichi. And not only is it yummy, but it also gives you a daily fix of vitamin B12. So as a working professional and also a mom, it's easier for me to remember to take my vitamins if I were to just eat a laddu a day. So, and after that comes my energy bars. So within that, the lactation bars are my favorite because if that whole process was so interesting. I combined ingredients like fenugreek, fennel, and rose, and vanilla, and all these things, and it just turned out so yummy, and I'm so happy with it. So that's something that I really, really enjoy. The other one is the newest one, which is the Iron Woman bar, which is also high in ingredients that contain a lot of iron. So that helps me as well as a lactating mother. And after that are the one something that has been a popular sweet from the time we launched it, and it's actually been one of the first sweets that we launched, which is the Kaju Elaichi Burfi. That I can eat constantly without getting bored of it at all.
Wonderful. I think the ones that you've mentioned, they're also different from each other and kind of give people that variety, the different textures and flavors that they're looking for. And just for those of you who want to know where you can get these sweets, you can order these sweets on our website, sampoornaahara.com, under sweets. We also ship most of these sweets pan India, except for the Gehu Gulab Jamun, which we are unable to ship at the moment. Everything else you can order from anywhere in India. And as Aditi said, they're all just so good in terms of flavor, in terms of variety, in terms of texture, unbelievable. And the flaxseed B12 laddu. So just to also clarify, because we keep getting this question on and on, flaxseed, dates, neither of them contain vitamin B12. We fortify these laddus with vitamin B12, and we use the exact quantities that have been recommended for your daily dose. You can have a look at the website. It gives you a dose for people under the age of 65 and a different dose for people over the age of 65, and all the details of what form of vitamin B12, how much, everything is on the page itself, so you can have a look at it. This is something that I personally would recommend that everyone subscribe to, simply because, as Aditi said, it gives you your daily requirement of vitamin B12 and of flaxseed. both of which are essential for good health, especially vitamin B12. It is a vitamin, as the name goes, and what better than eating a laddu to get your vitamin B12 rather than a tablet or a pill. So just check it out. I promise that you will love it. It's something that people can just not stop eating. So I think with that, we come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much for joining us, Aditi, and for sharing your experience and your journey through, you yourself adopting a sugar-free and a whole food plant-based diet, as well as making these and making it so easy and convenient for people who today are looking at eating healthy, unlike so many years ago when you didn't have an option. They do. And I think that is the best part of it. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. We look forward to bringing Aditi back on some other videos as well. So with that, I think we'll say goodbye today. Don't forget to like and comment on this video in case you have any questions, any specific questions. We are happy to make videos, happy to have people over to answer your questions and to interact with you. Share this video if you found it useful with people who will also find it useful. And you can also subscribe to our channel so that you are updated every time we upload a new video. With that, we come to the end of today's video. See you in the next one. Bye.